Alexander Isak arrives at Newcastle's training ground the day after breaking his silence and demanding the club sell him. Good afternoon, welcome along to the Transfer Show. Just 12 days to go now until deadline day. Isak's future continues to dominate following his furious statement last night. But where will he be playing his football come September the 2nd?
I want him gone.
I believe he's gone about it the wrong way.
If he's still part of Newcastle when the window shuts, he will be back playing.
His legacy at Newcastle now is gone.
It just smacks of desperation, and Newcastle fans are furious about this.
Just don't see how he gets reintegrated into our squad.
Well, the minute he scores a goal, he'll be lauded again. He'll be forgiven.
Newcastle United will not be held at ransom. Simple as that.
The narrative is painting him as this terrible villain.
Respecting the fans, I think it's just, there's no comeback from it, really.
Paul, you've got 5 seconds. Keep it clean. Your message for Isak.
Get lost.
Wow. Don't sit on the fence. We know Newcastle are keen to sign Brentford's Yoane Wissa. Big developments today. More on that very shortly. Eberechi is adored by Crystal Palace fans and spends time posing for pictures after leaving the training ground amid negotiations with Spurs over his future.
Hello, how are you?
Good, you?
Yeah, good, thank you, man. Nice to see you. Yeah, that's it. Nice, man. No, nice to see you, man.
You don't get that every day, do you?
I like that. What a way to start
moment.
the show.
Yeah. Nice to see you two. Marc and Dharma Sheth here. There's only one place to start, though, and that is with the future of Alexander Isak. The Newcastle striker last night accused his own club of breaking promises as he looks to try and force through this move to Liverpool before the deadline, of course, September the 1st. Newcastle responded with a statement of their own, suggesting Isak will not be allowed to leave. So, look, Marc, is the saga that's, well, everyone's talking about, basically, and we heard from those vociferous Newcastle fans saying, get lost. They're not very nice. They're upset. Where are we?
This has been quite extraordinary. I've been covering transfers for a number of years, not quite as long as this man. Oh. And, sorry, didn't mean to age you
tell you about his age?
But I don't think I've ever known a transfer quite like this. Two of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, two of the biggest clubs in world football fighting over one player. You've got noises from both sides. You've got a Premier League record bid that has been lodged by Liverpool, rejected by Newcastle, and we're in this situation now where every single day there is a fresh development, there are new noises, there is new information coming to light, and it feels like you have to have a full-time job just keeping on top of one transfer, and our job is to try and be across multiple transfers in the Premier League and across Europe. Like you rightly say, there were two statements last night that were significant. The first from Alexander Isak. Now, the reason why he put a statement on his social media was because last night was the PFA Awards, of which he was in the Premier League PFA Team of the Season. There were 10 players on stage to receive that award and be a part of that presentation ceremony, but there was one player missing, Alexander Isak, who was in the PFA side. And it was that absence that has prompted him to go onto his social media to thank the PFA and the fact that he was in this team. But then, of course, he explained his absence and said he didn't think it was right to be there at this moment in time where there's so much noise and speculation about his future. But then the statement went on, as you alluded to at the top of the show, and he said, the reality is promises were made, and when promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. Newcastle knew nothing about this statement, and the fact that he'd been so public with some of his thoughts and feelings had then alerted them to say, well, actually, we need to put a statement of our own out to try and just let fans know exactly our position on this, because we find it so difficult in these moments because we're trying to reflect accurately both sides of the coin. Yeah. There is always two sides in a scenario like this. There's the Newcastle side, there's the Alexander Isak side. We don't take sides, we just have to try and report the facts as we know them. In their statement, they refer to a couple of things. A, the fact that they were disappointed about his stance and his public statement. There's been no commitment ever made with regards to him leaving this summer. Conditions of a sale have not transpired, and we do not foresee those conditions being met. You can see Alexander Isak turning up to training today around 3 o'clock. He's on his own training regime. He's not currently with Eddie Howe's first team. So therefore, you see those pictures of him arriving. But this is where we're at the moment. So two key statements coming out last night.
You have to look at the timing as well. You said it at the top. There are 12 days of this transfer window to go. Alexander Isak, it sounds like he's getting desperate because he has now got 12 days to effectively try and impact or feel that he can impact an exit out of Newcastle United, because come 7 p.m. on September the 1st, if he hasn't managed to engineer that move out of Newcastle United, he's staying at Newcastle United, and everything that brings, trying to reintegrate himself into the squad, trying to get the fans back on side, maybe if some of the players might not be too enamoured by his behaviour, to get them back on side as well. But you've got to say, in all of this, while Alexander Isak has made his statement, Newcastle United themselves, I've described it as a subtle firmness, their statement, because they've actually intimated in that statement that they would be prepared to sell Alexander Isak. If you listen to this, they said, as explained to Alex and his representatives, we must always take into considerations the best interests of Newcastle United, the team and our supporters in all decisions. And we have been clear that the conditions of a sale this summer have not transpired. That means they had conditions to sell Alexander Isak, and those conditions were not met.
But the biggest condition seems to be that they want 40 million more from the offer that's been given.
Yeah, but they've also said, they went on to say, as Marc mentioned there, we do not foresee those conditions being met. They then went on to say that after expressing disappointment that Isak had taken to social media, they would be welcomed back into the fold. So they're playing this very, very carefully, because they know there are two scenarios at play here. For example, if Liverpool were to come out with this money that Newcastle United want for Alexander Isak, and more significantly, Newcastle United get the replacements that they would want, then there is a chance Isak can leave. But then there's also that chance that Isak is going to stay. Hence why Newcastle United, in that statement, have also said, we are a family at Newcastle United. Alexander Isak is part of that family, and we will welcome him back into that family once he rejoins his teammates.
But he doesn't want to be part of the family.
No.
It's clearly... So the situation is this. He's agitating for the move. The club is saying, well, hang on, it comes with conditions. The conditions are they want more money, otherwise he can't go anywhere. Surely that's the only condition that there should be, because otherwise...
Replacements
as well is key. But Newcastle United, just say Liverpool right now put an offer in of £150 million, which is what we believe is the asking price for Alexander Isak. The condition of sale would be, OK, we accept that, providing we've got a replacement lined up. And that's one of the big problems that Newcastle currently face.
But they're never going to find a replacement like Alexander Isak. So Yoane Wissa could be available.
They have been trying to get a replacement, or trying to get someone, in fact, earlier on in the transfer window, to play alongside Alexander Isak. They tried all window. They tried to bring in Benjamin Sesko. And I don't think you can criticise Newcastle United, how they approached this.
No, but they missed out. And they missed out on Eberechi to Liverpool, who now could get Isak.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that with regard to Benjamin Sesko, they went all out. They actually bid more, initial payment more than Manchester United. It wasn't a case of Sesko saying, I don't want to go to Newcastle. He just had his heart set on going to Manchester United. Now, the irony of the Eberechi deal is that Liverpool buying Hugo Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt, who Newcastle United were actually after, has actually made it a little bit more difficult for Liverpool to get Alexander Isak out of Newcastle, because Newcastle United could have viewed Ekitike as a potential replacement for Alexander Isak, even though it was painted as we want Hugo Ekitike to play alongside Alexander Isak.
But ultimately, though, who wants a player at their club that doesn't want to play for them? No, that doesn't make sense, right? You've got a player that's training on his own at the moment.
But look at the precedent that
of what's going on.
Because there could be loads of players in the Premier League that don't want to play for you anymore. And
but that
must
does
happen every day. It must happen every day. Ones we don't hear about either. If they did that, right, you can go for every single player that did that, then they wouldn't have any... You'd have half a squad sometimes, because there'd be like 10 players who can't get into a team. I'm not happy anymore, I want out. But fact is, that's the role of the owners, the sporting director, the manager in particular, to make sure that these players are happy. And if they aren't happy, of course he's not. But what's he going to do?
He's not happy today. He might be happy tomorrow.
Listen, I am playing slight devil's advocate, but purely because there are Newcastle fans saying, get lost. We don't want you here anymore, because they feel so hurt by the way that this is played out. We'll talk about Eze and the way that that's being dealt with. But you've got fans standing outside Crystal Palace, full view of the fact that Eze could be on his way, still wanting his picture. He's there with iPhones and telling people, you know, he loves them and whatever. So that's all playing out, and this is playing out for Newcastle. It's an ugly situation.
Say here, and I think we'll go into more detail on this later, but what I would say here is Eberechi Eze and the Alexander Isak situation is slightly different, because what has happened with the Eze situation is Crystal Palace gave him, Eberechi Eze, a little bit of control by agreeing in his contract that he was going to have a release clause.
Okay.
So they knew that if anyone went in with £60 million plus £8 million in performance-related add-ons under the conditions and the payment terms that Crystal Palace had set out in his contract, Palace knew they couldn't do anything about it, because that club is then free to talk to Eberechi Eze should Eberechi Eze want to talk to that club.
And has Isak got a release clause?
No. So Eberechi Eze, in his situation, is now saying, right, I've signed that contract, and so I've kind of got a bit of control if a club comes in with that. But I also know that the day before the season starts, that release clause expires. That means, and I've signed this, that the club now have control of how much they can charge for me. So, in a way, he has got no issues with Crystal Palace at all. The issues Alexander Isak has got can't be compared to the ones Eze hasn't got with Crystal Palace, because he believes that Newcastle United made him certain promises that he believes that they're reneged on. And Newcastle United, for their part, have come back publicly, because he's come out publicly, and they have said that's not true. There was never any conditions for sale or this new contract that they were going to talk about.
I think this goes back to 13, 14 months ago, when the Newcastle hierarchy at the time sat down with Alexander Isak and his representatives, and the idea was floated at about a potential new contract at Newcastle United. And early discussions happened between...
A new and improved one.
Yes.
Obviously, he was still on a long deal.
New improved contract.
Right.
And there was early discussions between the hierarchy at the club and his representatives about rewarding him for being one of the best strikers in world football. That meant longer-term contract, more money. We believe in you. Paul Mitchell came into the football club and went, hang on a second, you've got 4 years left on your current contract. We don't need to give you a new contract. And I believe that statement last night from Isak is reflective of those promises that were made by the football club.
Yeah.
A new sporting director has come into the football club and said, no, I'm not going to honour what was potentially agreed or those conversations that were started, because I don't believe right now you deserve one with 4 years left on your current deal. And I think that stems... a lot of what happened in the last 24 hours and this summer stems back to those conversations that happened in excess of 12 months ago. And that's where a lot of his frustration lies, because he believes he should be paid like one of the greatest strikers in the world, and right now he's not. And that's where some of the problems are. And I think just one thing I need to say on this situation as well, which I think is important. Newcastle are a huge football club. Huge football club. As far as they're concerned, as far as their owners are concerned, as far as the manager's concerned, this is a destination football club. This is not a stepping stone. We're in the Champions League. We've spent millions and millions of pounds to create the best team we possibly can under PSR circumstances, right? So therefore, you should want to stay here. Players want to come here. And whilst publicly this summer has been chaotic, internally, they're really pleased with the business they've done. Every single department at that football club has improved. And you look at that starting 11 now, Eddie Howe's got a better team now than he did at the end of the season. Isak, being in that Newcastle setup, is key to them moving forward. And I don't think it's a certainty he goes.
Yeah, and I hear you. And I think that the bottom line is there's a situation on... There's both sides to this coin, but I think it's good to kind of hear both sides of it.
Definitely.
What is the situation in terms of... We'll have more on this throughout the evening anyway. But what is the situation on replacements? Wissa.
Yeah, we talked about potential replacement for Isak. Yoane Wissa isn't necessarily a replacement for Alexander Isak. I think he's seen more for Callum Wilson, because Callum Wilson left the football club as well. But this one is a pretty unsavoury saga as well between Yoane Wissa and Brentford. That is an understatement, but it does seem to be moving. We heard this afternoon that Newcastle United had resumed talks with Brentford. We then heard that a bid had gone in of an initial £35 million plus performance-related add-ons. There are now reports emerging that that bid may have been rejected. We're just trying to get confirmation that that is in fact the case. They had a £25 million bid rejected earlier on in this transfer window as well. As I mentioned, this one has got very unsavoury. There are comparisons to be made, and people are making them between Wissa and what Isak is happening at Newcastle United. But rather like Isak, Wissa believes that Brentford have reneged on certain promises about him being able to leave. And he says he's been in talks with Brentford for the last 6 months about a potential exit in this transfer window. But sources close to Brentford are saying no such assurances have been made. Rather like this Newcastle United Isak saga. But far as Wissa is concerned, no intention of playing for Brentford again. He's removed, remember, all traces of Brentford from his social media channels earlier on this week. And you just wonder, rather like the Isak saga, we don't know how that one's going to end, but you just wonder with this one in particular, has it gone that far that the best outcome for all parties is sell Yoane Wissa to Newcastle United, get the money that Brentford want, get the money that Newcastle United want to pay, and then everyone moves on. Representatives of Wissa have been in London the last 10 days, and they are all ready to finalise a deal with Newcastle once the two clubs have agreed.
All right, you said everyone moves on. That's what I'm getting told to do right now. We've got to go to a break because we've chatted too much. We will be back, though, and we'll talk more about Eberechi training with his Crystal Palace teammates earlier today. But will he be on the move? More on that next. Oh, it's got heated today. Plenty of speculation surrounding some of Crystal Palace's key players at the moment, and in particular Eberechi. Gary Koshel has been at Crystal Palace's training ground all day, and we can join him now live. Lovely to see you again, Gary. Look, what's the latest on Eze's future there then?
Yeah, interesting debate before the break. Look, pure and simply, Eze has handled this absolutely perfectly. Isak hasn't. And to show that the fans believe that, we've just seen him leave. He was one of the last players to leave, was Ebbs, as they call him here. And he spent ages talking to the fans from his car, doing phone messages, signing autographs, really, really connecting with the fans who know that he's leaving, or expect that he probably is leaving, but don't begrudge him that move. And earlier in the day as well, he was in good spirits with his teammates as they trained ahead of the conference playoff game tomorrow night, and was enjoying being the centre of attention. You're not going to get much closer access to a player who's at the centre of a transfer saga than that. Look at him, right there in front of our cameras, joining in training, absolutely 100% committed to the club. You can't say that, can you, about a couple of other players who are at the centre of similar sagas. He just said there, give it a rest. And I'm not giving it a rest, I'm sorry. Listen, what a man. You know, seriously, Palace fans love him for that reason. He's always given his all. He knows he's at the centre of speculation. He knows that we thrive on these transfer stories this time of the year. And he's taken it all in his stride here to commit himself to Palace, as always. Marc Guehi as well, a bit further away from me, so can't hear what I'm saying about him, I don't think. But again, a smile on his face. And training. There you go. I haven't seen an open training session like this where everything I say is being listened to and potentially subbed by the players in question. I'm not going to ask Adam Wharton about his future. No, definitely not.
Oh, Gary, I don't know who's enjoying themselves more, you or them. But look, it's business as usual. No such thing as training on their own for both Guehi or Eze at all.
No, both training really hard, both fully committed to the cause despite all the noise around them, and both, we're told by their manager, will start this game tomorrow night.
If we all have to be pleased that the player gives 100% when he has a guilty contract, so there's something going wrong. So it should be the opposite. If a player signs a contract, so he should stick to the contract. So I think it's not that we have to say thank you every day that the player gives 100%. This is what we can expect. So also to get a few pounds a week. Most of you will be surprised that they will start again tomorrow because of all the rumours. But again, they are committed. They are committed to the team.
Bilal El Khanous, Leicester City's 21-year-old, similar player to Eze, obviously not got the pedigree he's got, but a £32 million fee for him, we understand, has been agreed between Crystal Palace and Leicester, but it's still some way from being a done deal yet.
OK, brilliant as always from you. Thank you very much indeed, Gary, in the sunshine there. Right, let's talk other transfers. Nottingham Forest, we've got to be quick. They're in for a midfielder, is that right?
Yeah, Douglas Luiz will be familiar to Aston Villa fans. They absolutely loved him, outstanding. Didn't want to sell him, but needed to because of PSR. Went to Juventus, hasn't worked out. We understand that Juventus and Forest have reached an agreement for a potential loan deal with an option based on the number of appearances. 19 games in Serie A last season, didn't work out. Looks like he's heading back to the Premier League.
OK, what about Manchester United? Where are we with them today?
Yeah, Rasmus Højlund, developments on that. Remember, AC Milan wanted to sign him on a loan with an option. It looks like they couldn't convince Rasmus Højlund to join because United and Højlund wanted a permanent deal. Milan now look like they're trying to finalise a deal with Bayer Leverkusen striker Victor Boniface on the same terms, similar terms that they wanted to do with Rasmus Højlund. RB Leipzig, they've been exploring a permanent deal for Højlund as well. If a deal can be agreed, then it will come down to Rasmus Højlund again. I think Napoli may be keeping an eye on his situation because Romelu Lukaku is injured, but he'll obviously come back. So there's going to be an issue with what kind of deal that they can do there. So Højlund definitely one to watch, one we'll talk about more in the 7.
OK, before you both leave, I'm just asking you one question. Isak, is he still with Newcastle come September the 2nd?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll go with him, yeah.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
You sure?
I think he's going to be a Liverpool
You think he's going to be a Liverpool player?
after the game between Newcastle and Liverpool.
Ooh, Vicky Gomersall exclusive.
No, well, it's not an exclusive. That's just what I think. I think it's an unhappy player. I don't think he's going to stay at Newcastle. Anyway, these guys are going to be back. I won't be, but Mike Wedderburn will be at the helm. That's 7 o'clock, the transfer show. There's so much to discuss and more.